What got your interest in law enforcement?
There's a way to do it and a way to do it right so that kid never has to tell that story in court. This is one of the hard things for a lot of people to do, is because you got to sympathize or at least empathize with the perp.
What got your interest in law enforcement?
I was married at that time, and me and my first wife, we adopted our son because I can't have kids. We found that out, and we adopted our son. And I was deploying all the time because I'd gotten out of the infantry, I was an interrogator translator, and we were deploying 6 to 9 months out of the year. And I didn't want to be that father that was gone all the time.
Gotcha.
And wanted to keep my marriage healthy. So I thought, the only thing I could do, my sense of service, I think, is what it was as well, is I decided to go in law enforcement, easy transition. So I came back home, went to the law enforcement academy, and got hired on actually before I finished the academy by a sheriff's department, which is up in the mountains west of Colorado Springs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When did you start getting into combating some of the child crime stuff?
It was probably about 3 or 4 months after I had been with the sheriff's department. A job opening came up for crimes against family investigator, neurodetective, and and again, just the way I am, I always want to do the next best thing or whatever it is, and I'm not afraid to do things that are different or difficult, and so I chose that, and and it was most of it was crimes against children. We didn't call it really trafficking as much then. A lot of it was child abuse, child sexual abuse. I was certified as a forensic interviewer of children. The Lord blessed me with the ability to get kids to tell me shit they should never have to tell anybody. And it was an honor to be able to be that guy, as difficult as it is, because my goal was, there's a way to do it and a way to do it right so that kid never has to tell that story in court. And it keeps them from having to be re-victimized by the defense attorneys or having to do it in a public forum like that ever again. And so my goal was, that's what I wanted to do, is get it right. And then with my background as being an interrogator in the Marine Corps, if I get the perp in the chair, if I can get him talking about anything, he's going to confess one way or the other. I can get him to confess. And it's, it doesn't take torture. It doesn't take anything like that. There's a method to it. And
can you talk a little bit about that method?
Yeah, I started my interrogation, and this is one of the hard things for a lot of people to do, is because you got to sympathize or at least empathize with the perp. My interrogation, I never would go arrest them and bring them in. I would invite them to come in. And, hey, I've got a report of this. I got to get it cleared up. I'll get it off my desk. Need to find out what's going on. And when they walked through the door of the police department, I started the interrogation from there. And there's a lot of reasons I did it that way, is because if they come in on their own, and not all of them would, but the majority of them would, because they're master manipulators. They think they've got it down and they can manipulate everybody because that's how they've made their way through life. That's how they get the kids. And a lot of times they're manipulating the parents of the kids before they even get the kids. Because if I can befriend the parents, and if they can do that, then they know they can earn the trust of the protector, then they're going to ease up on the kids. And so I would bring them in and walk them through, and I would get people to come in and sit down and just act like they're typing on a computer or typing on a typewriter back then. I'd have graphs and pictures, and I'm staging everything. So as they're walking in, they don't see their name up on anything, but they see all this stuff going on, and they know it's about them. So by the time they come in, and I'd never put them in an interrogation room because I don't want them to think they're getting interrogated. I'm just there to talk to them. I need to figure out what's going on.
You befriend them.
And I'd make sure, like if we're sitting here like this, you know, if the door's over there, I make sure that the perpetrator be sitting in your chair because I want them close to the door. I want the door off to their side. And I'd have a clock over here usually, things like that, so I can read their body language. So when I'm asking questions and I start getting nervous, that's when that nonverbal behavior comes out that they can't control. And so they'll start looking at the clock because they're worried about time or their watch, or they'll start leaning over to the door. You know, all those little things are indicators of deception, especially if it's reaction to a certain question. And Colorado, when I was working there, was a single party consent, which means that you can have a victim call somebody. Basically, it's one person within that conversation. If one person in the conversation knows that it's being recorded, it's not an illegal wiretap. That's legal.
Okay.
So if some of your more adult kids or more mature kids, and a lot of times it was kids that got perped on. I mean, one of them was was a swim coach, and he had left and he was working out in Virginia, and for a YMCA teaching swimming still. The girl had went to college. She never reported it, grew up, went to college, was struggling through college and started getting counseling because she'd repressed all of that, and it kind of came out. And so we're still able to go after him because the statute of limitations is, I can't remember what it is, 12, 15, 18 years for that crime. And, you know, it's getting her, scripting it out, getting her comfortable with using very descriptive words. It has to be very descriptive of what happened to him, and calling the guy up, and called him up, talked to him on the phone, and he had kids in his office. And the moment she called, pushed the kids out of the office, and went into his manipulation, and trying to manipulate her again and not talking to the cops.
You know, the more I dive into this subject, the more I realize this almost seems to be white-collar crime. And you see these big busts, and it's always white-collar. It's always it's not, I can't say always.
Right.
You read about it all the time. It was a teacher. It was a coach. Just here in Franklin, Tennessee, they had one of the biggest sex trafficking rings in the country busted. Then a couple weeks ago, that wasn't long ago, that was maybe a year ago. Then a couple weeks ago, they found out that there was a soccer coach who had been, I don't know exactly what he was doing, but he was drugging little boys and videoing it. And he left his cell phone at I believe it was at a pizza shop. And they were just trying to figure out whose phone it was. They went through some pictures, saw a video, got it to the police. This guy had been doing this for a long time. Yep. And so you as somebody that used to go after these kind of guys, I mean, am I correct in my assumption that this isn't the typical, you look at a scumbag and think, yeah,
no,
these are professionals.
I'll give you a good example. I mean, I had a guy he was a karate teacher, and he had and so by the time I arrested him, he had been already caught doing this once before in Ohio, went to prison, got out of prison there, went to Florida, tried to do it down there, got caught. Didn't get caught where it was criminal, but his background got identified by a good reporter in Florida, and then he moved to Colorado and started there.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest
and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.